This performance solution actually addresses a marketplace which is actually adjacent to Salesforce's CRM marketplace, and I'll explain that a little bit more. And we're all about linking strategies to execution, which is the place where we add value in the business processes and the value chain of a company. If you think of it, there's kind of an upstream process in front of a typical ERP and CRM solution, meaning that an ERP or CRM exists because somebody came up with a product or service that was unique in a marketplace that somebody was willing to pay for. And we call this the innovation pipeline. So this section in the middle here in white is what we can refer to as the innovation pipeline, which starts with this portfolio management piece, both products and services. Some people also refer to this as lifecycle management. Other people refer to this as new product introduction. Whatever terminology you want to use on it, we call it the innovation pipeline. And so we basically fit upstream from the typical CRM marketplace and ERP, where essentially before the product is ready for the market or service as it's being put together. We primarily sell to C-level players because they're the people who are interested in these type of issues. Though we hear from people at the bottom saying, what strategy? According to the conference board for 2012, the top challenge for CEOs is basically innovation, or basically restarting their innovation pipeline after all the nasty things they had to do to it over the last few years because of the worldwide recession that we're still experiencing. We address specifically that innovation pipeline piece. We're talking about alignment of what the corporate strategy is with what people are actually doing. I talk to executives a lot, and they always tell me, we had this great strategy. And I ask them, well, how's it going? And they go, well, we don't know, because they don't have any feedback loop that tells them how well the strategy is working. And I talk to the people on the bottom, and they say, what strategy? So a lot of this has to do with communicating strategy downward and also getting input from the execution of that strategy back up to the people who are doing the strategy, shift their strategy based on how well it's rolling out or the objective, the obstacles they're finding in the marketplace. And we do that in a number of different ways. We start with the whole area of portfolios and what is it that the actual company should be doing. They had original product and the service. A group of people out there in the marketplace decided that this was cool and they wanted to spend money on it. But to make an ongoing concern, you have to have more people who are going to buy your product. At least start out with some sort of market analysis. Who did you sell to? What type of people are there? Are there more like this? Typically, you have a marketing organization or product organization that does a lot of analysis. It can also be involved in, depending upon how sophisticated your company is, about vision, mission, their statement, and a set of values. You may take everything and look at it relative to how does that link up with our vision and our mission statement and our values as a company. Sometimes companies do what are called SWOT analysis, which are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, if you're not familiar with SWOT. And they'll do a SWOT analysis, and that'll lead them into market analysis. And what are your strategies to actually make these happen once you decide, what markets to go after and what should be your objectives? And then you have to take into account specifically customers, your competitors, what are the partners in space, and who's willing to invest in what you're trying to do. If the company's growing rapidly, you may need external investors. That internal investment streams may not be enough. And you need to have pro formas, which are financial projections, as well as your short-term one-year budget, sort of show those things to investors. Social wrapping that goes around the whole thing that talks about, what people like, what things are trending, and what are the recommendations. There's a planning plane, which is all the planning that goes on, but then you got to execute on it. So there's a whole separate plane having to do with execution. So think of it as like a two-layered cake. You got the first layer of the cake, which has to do with all the things you do for planning, and then the second layer of the cake is all the things that you actually do to execute it. There's a feedback that needs to happen between that execution and that planning as well. From a CIO's perspective, one of the challenges for that part of the organization becoming more and more a priority for CIOs, where do you add value to the business? The concept of value. A CEO looks at it from like a revenue or from earnings per share. But a CIO has to look at it from the standpoint of business value. How am I adding business value? More and more of it has to do with the customer, where the customer used to be a long ways from the CIO. It is now a front door. They're running e-commerce sites. They're running help desk sites, which are directly used by customers. They have to be a part of the whole customer experience solution. and they have to understand how they add value. We also incorporate what's a higher level concept beyond the innovation gap. Most people, when they think about innovation, they think about research and development. Those are the people who do innovation. I'm familiar with Robert Kaplan's work on strategy maps. He's brought this whole concept of value creation. You've probably heard of the value chain, which usually refers to supply chains methodology, but this concept of that every place in your company should be adding value to the business. This strategy map that I show here in the middle is an example of the value creation map. This gives you a way to holistically look at the entire organization and look at where are you creating value and what are you doing to create value and how well is it being executed. So again, this concept of planning versus executing. Traffic lighting technique, green, yellow, and red. So we use that extensively. What we do is take all of our visualizations and project through so you can see the plan and you can see what's happening from an execution standpoint. So in this case, you see that there's some things that need to review, there's some things that are on target, there's some things that need immediate corrective action. And you can see what we call management at a glance views your entire organization and be able to drill down and see where the issues are. So you can click into you can see the details. So this is useful from a CIO's perspective because they have to understand where they fit in the value chain, in the value creation. And so by having this sort of model allows them to show how they contribute into the overall business and value. Our enterprise level product is called Value Creator. What it helps to do is drive alignment between your strategy and your execution, as well as with your third-party providers and within roadmaps. You may, from an IT perspective manager, especially in today's arena where it's moved from being infrastructure-centric to being application-centric, and now I argue that it needs to be value creation-centric, that you have a lot of third-party people involved, and you need to be able to align those people to what you're trying to do. So it's more than just vendor management. You need to be managing their future roadmap and saying, excuse me, I need this in order to be successful. Where is that in your roadmap? Also allows you to use best practices and optimize your processes, collect statistics on these processes so you can get a feedback loop going in this. It helps in the whole concept of prioritization and allocation of the precious resources that you have inside of a company. About portfolio management is big prioritizing what it is you're going to work on, ranking the market segments and see which of the market segments we're going to go after and how do we do that. So you hear us talk a lot about ranking of information and giving you a way to be able to automate that ranking so that you can look at the top and figure out how much you can afford to bite off. That if you choose too many things to do in your portfolio, what you typically end up is a lot of people who are very stressed out, some products and services that are not the best thing you could have come up with that don't really achieve your objectives. So you need to be really sharp with your cutting edge when you're doing your portfolio to make sure that you actually bite off no more than you can really chew, because it really has a demoralizing effect on your staff when they're just stressed beyond belief trying to get all this stuff done. And then you'll see a lot of stuff having to do with measurements and targets and how do you compare to that. We also have a survey tool which is built on top of Salesforce's Sites platform, which does surveying of customers, of employees, of suppliers, whatever you want to survey, we can do it. What we're trying to do is give a balance between stuff for executives and for employees. The executives want visibility of what's going on. They want to understand where they can help out, where they can make better decisions, get more information, make better decisions. How can they improve the profitability of the company? We focus on profitability rather than revenue because a lot of people focus on top line. But the reality is the bottom line is actually what sinks your company if you don't mind it carefully. What the employee is to say, we don't see the big picture. How can we be aligned to a big picture we can't see? What this tool allows you to do is to see this. So you can see the mapping of all this information, and you can actually see the reasons why people decided to go in this particular market segment or why this feature. The information is all available. It's about recording the why pieces of it. People want us to understand what the best practices of other people. They want to be successful in what they do, and it helps to reduce their stress. A lot of employees talk about the stress levels that they're under. We're trying to make a balance between what the executives want and what's good for the employees, so that they'll both buy into what we're trying to do. The actual value creator is an application suite, meaning it has multiple equivalent to modules. Familiar with like an ERP with multiple modules, you might have an AP module and a fixed asset module. And this also has separate pieces, and these are actually implemented by tabs and so forth. But you can see the breadth of everything. This is actually, from an object perspective, this is as big as your CRM. It's a suite. So one of the things that we did recently is we actually broke it up into professional edition. So there's now value maximizer and value strategizer, which are two separate pieces, plus value propagator, which is a rules engine that allows you to do the ranking and the statusing pieces. It has other applications because it's a generalized rules engine. It covers everything from financials to business management to product management to process and project management. All that's built in, including things like timesheets and expense reports. In the process management space, the company has gazillions of different processes, and they actually all link together. Many of them have various things that you want from a compliance standpoint. Not only do you want to make sure they execute, but you want to make sure they're executing to within normal parameters. So we have this, what we call this process hierarchy. So you can start with either the corporate process map, for example, and then this concept of the balanced scorecard or the value creation map, strategic planning, and then the new product lifecycle is all the way down here. You notice that the traffic lighting, the green and the yellows are projected through this. So you can see what the plan is, but you can also see what's happening with the execution of the plan. Some of the project management pieces, we also go down as far as supporting agile methodology. So this is a storyboard for an agile sprint. This is sprint number 3. That's implemented. So we can run agile as well as traditional waterfall. So you can also have more of a Gantt view, both from project and resource. You can get those views as well. But people sometimes get it mixed up with project management. That's only like a small fraction of what we do. And almost every financial force, for example, has a project object inside of it as well. It's just one of the pieces that you need to run a business. It's your way to execute things. The challenges for CFO are loyalty and competitiveness, and then also to be able to make better decisions from the information you have. With the due diligence stuff at the top, looking at how you compete against other people in the market, with the ability to see the decision-making information, be able to execute and get feedback on how well it's executing. We believe that we're in line with what the CFO has as a challenge, that we do pro forma type financial planning. One of the things that most financial systems can't do is to do project or program or product-based budgeting. Typically, you get their financial chart of accounts and you get departments, and that's all you get. We actually do traceability back. And what we also do is real-time ROI. So you can look at a product, you can look at a campaign, you can look at an account, and you can see the real-time ROI at any point in time. It includes both planning and actual. We actually do revenue recognition. Value Maximizer is all the process and accounting pieces of it. It's essentially the execution part, and the Strategizer is all the strategy piece having to do with vision, mission, strategy. And the Value Propagator is this powerful rules engine that is the thing that takes action on your behalf and helps to propagate information or status or rankings. From the standpoint, if you're doing a market analysis, companies typically do like their strategic planning like maybe twice a year now. It used to be once a year, but the world is changing too fast. Even twice a year, most people will acknowledge is too slow, meaning that things happen in the market and you got to start dealing with them now. You can't wait until 6 months from now if you just finish your strategic planning process and all of a sudden the world changes on you. And so what this allows you to do is to put all that information in there, and as somebody updates it, it may re-rank a market and tell you that you've got a market that's going down and you don't want to be doing business in that market, but you have another one that's going up faster, and you need to be in that elevator going up rather than the market that's going down. And so it automatically propagates and re-ranks things as new information comes in. So it's a real-time strategy machine.